All right, hey everybody, this is Christian Witt here, and I am with Keith Campbell. He is the Senior Manager of Marketing Analytics at Biltmore, and he is my subject matter expert candidate for today for my ENT 610 project. So welcome, Keith, and thank you for being here and being willing to be my victim today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I didn't know I was going to be a victim. But...
So I'm going to start with just a little icebreaker.
Okay.
What are you most looking forward to this summer?
Summer. That doesn't have to do with data analytics. Actually, that I won't be doing data analytics for part of it, I guess. I want to take vacation. Actually, one of the things I'm really looking forward to is I'm taking a cruise with my girlfriend and her family, and we're heading up to Maine and Nova Scotia. So it'll be a cruise up of like the northern coastline. So that'll be fun. It'll be a different way because I'm originally from up in the Massachusetts area. So that'll be a lot of fun to go up and kind of explore different parts of Maine. And I've actually never been to Nova Scotia before, so I'm actually very, very excited about that. So
jealous. Yeah, I've always wanted to go up there. It sounds fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. So yeah, so that is what I'm looking forward to the most. So
good. I am looking forward to not taking classes this summer.
Yeah, me too. Yeah.
And just enjoying the warm weather, going down the river, spending time in your backyard.
Yeah, that's gonna be fun. We got the little playground back there. So
awesome. All right, so I'm gonna start with these questions.
Okay.
And there's no time limit or anything like that. Just however you want to answer them. Very casual.
Okay.
So tell me about your background and career and how it led to where you are today.
Okay. Yeah, so going back, so I did my undergrad work up in Boston. I'm from there originally. So I went to college in Boston, did my undergrad, and I had my degree in business administration with a concentration in marketing. So what's interesting, my first job out of college, I ended up doing some accounting work because even though my degree was in business per se, I was always good at math, and I fell into this job. And then I ended up doing accounting for Sam Adams, the Boston Beer Company technically, but everybody knows them as Sam Adams. So I was doing some stuff with them, and I ended up analyzing stale beer. Like, we would give credits on stale beer, and I was like, well, how much money are we giving away on giving people credit on stale beer and pulling it off the shelf and all this other stuff? So I just kind of did this pseudo-analysis on the side, and some people liked what I did, and there was an opening for a position as an analyst. And so they said, you should do that. And I said, oh, okay. So, and I guess the rest is kind of history. There's a long path that, I ended up at Biltmore, but that really kind of opened up my eyes to the world of data analytics. This is back in the mid-90s, and it was still kind of emerging. Data analytics has been around in some way, shape, and form, well, for a long time throughout history, but really started to gain some momentum as, statistical thinking and even computer programming really started to take off in like the 70s. They used to call it decision support. And then through the 80s, and then throughout all the years, it's changed. Like, people call it data analytics, business intelligence, data science. It's like whatever the flavor or hot word of the month is, but it all comes down to the same thing. So I ended up in that field, and I ended up around some very, very, very smart folks who taught me a lot about data analysis and how to look at data and think about things in different ways and problem solving techniques. So yeah, that's how I kind of ended up there. So.
All right, very good.
Yeah.
So how do you measure a successful marketing endeavor from a data analytics perspective?
So for me, and really it should be for anyone, but it really actually comes down to what was the expectation of whatever it is that you're analyzing. So hopefully someone has gone through the process, and sometimes the analyst will help with this ahead of time. They will actually define, well, what is the goal of whatever it is that we're doing, whether it's a marketing campaign or some pricing model or some new product or whatever it may be. It's really establishing what are those goals, and making sure that those goals are, in different jobs they call them either SMAC or SMART. I like SMAC because it's shorter, but it's specific, measurable, attainable, and compatible. So obviously it's specific. It's like, we're going to grow by 5%. 5%, well, that's measurable. Did we grow by 5%? is it attainable? You don't want to say, well, I want to grow by 1,000%. It's like, well, that may not be realistic. And then compatible. Is it in alignment with our mission statement for the company or our other objectives for the company? So that to me is really what's important, when using data analysis, to make sure that you are really analyzing the data for the specific purpose of telling someone, did you achieve your goal? Otherwise, you're just going down all these rabbit holes. I mean, there's so much data in the world right now. I mean, you just get lost in it, and they call it analysis paralysis. So that really helps define where you need to stay focused on to make sure that you can tell them, hey, here was the results of this goal. You either made it or you didn't make it. And even more importantly, here's why, or here's how you got there or didn't get there. And then you can use that information to make future decisions about establishing new goals and figuring out, well, how do we change that? How do we turn things around? Or how do we capitalize and do that again, or continue to be successful? So that's kind of my approach to that.
Yeah, very good. What is the most memorable marketing campaign or initiative you've worked on, or which you are most proud of?
I guess I'll just go back a couple years, and I can't speak in specifics, but at Biltmore, it's an attraction, as most people know. Among many other things, we also have a wine company and products and everything else, but primarily the main business that everybody's familiar with is an attraction, and as such, it has seasonal patterns. So it's really busy at certain times of the year, not so busy in other times of the year. And one of our not so busy times, and I think it's pretty common knowledge, is January, February, March. It's a slow time of the year for us. Because the gardens aren't in bloom, and people just aren't traveling as much. And so several years back, we decided to try some things to see if we can boost visitation in that time period. And we had used pricing in the past as a method, lowering the price to see if people would come in. But we decided, well, what happens if we add more product, to the experience? So we started to do exhibits in that time frame. And so what was really kind of cool is I had just started my program in school for applied statistics and data analytics, and was learning some new techniques. And so it was like, well, how do you evaluate whether this exhibit is actually successful? Because there's so many other things that can factor into our business, even in that time of year, because you have when you start to get into February is just weather. A really snowy, bad, cold day in February or a stretch of that could really hurt your whole month. And then so you have to be able to tease that out from the exhibit. Whatever different pricing models you have in place. You have spring breaks in March. Like sometimes if Easter falls in March, and then you have spring breaks, and that's a big time for us with schools. So you have to kind of factor all of these things and anything else that may be going on in the marketplace. So what I really enjoyed, and one of my favorite things that I've done, was to basically do an ANCOVA analysis, which is just one technique, and there are many others I could have used, but it's analysis of covariance to factor all those things in and figure out, where we made a pretty risky step and investment in, building this product and having this exhibit in that time frame. So it came with risk. So we wanted to make sure we got our return on investment. So I was able to actually conduct an analysis to tease out all those different factors and say, hey, here's how much lift we got in visitation as a result of this exhibit that we did. And I was really proud of that because I think it was one of the first times for the company where it was a real statistical analysis of a marketing effort that demonstrated the power of data analysis and how it can kind of help separate out those different moving parts of a marketing campaign or a product, thing. So yeah, I actually really enjoyed working on that, and I learned a lot while doing it, and of course it's not perfect, but it gets you directional and let us know that, and as people probably know if they're familiar with Biltmore, we're continuing to do exhibits in that time frame as a result of that because it proved to be successful. So
Are the exhibits a relatively new thing?
Yeah, so that was back in 2014, I believe, was the first year that we did that.
Okay.
And that was the Dressing Downton exhibit, where we had fashion clothes from the TV show Downton Abbey exhibited. So
I remember that, and I remember the one where the exhibit that had Jackie Kennedy's wedding veil, I believe.
that was, they start to blend together. I think that may have been the next year, 2015 or maybe 2016. Yeah, where it was called Fashionable Romance, and it was about kind of like wedding gowns and
I did make it to that one.
Yeah, so, yeah.
All right, awesome, thank you.
Yeah.
Describe a time that a marketing campaign or initiative did not achieve the results you expected, and what did you learn from it?
No comment. All of our things achieve their things. No, of course not. There's a lot of things come to mind. One of the things I'll do it. One of the things that really comes to mind, and I think it's a good example, and I can't provide specifics on different things, but as you can imagine, like web analytics, and doing things on the website. What's great is you can try things and do like A/B testing, and you try things and sometimes they don't work. It's like, oh, let's try this landing page versus this landing page. Here's how we've always done it. Well, let's try this new way. I think it's going to be great. We're going to change the layout. We're going to have a different color button or whatever it is. And so someone goes through that process of designing this thing, which is not my area of expertise, but someone will say, oh, well, we think this is going to work better. It's like, okay, great. So we put the two into test, and then you'll actually find out that, it's like, well, actually the original way worked better. Not that this, other way, the new way of thinking was necessarily wrong or bad or anything like that. It just, while we may have thought that it was going to work better, it actually didn't. And that's what's nice about data analytics is, it's not about a guessing game.
Mm-hmm.
You can actually analyze the data and see, okay, well, which one performed better, which one provided more ticket sales or email signups or whatever the goal happened to be of whatever it was that you were trying to do. So that's kind of one good example, and it's a nice example of, and what you learn from that, particularly in the world of digital, which everything is going, in this day and age, is to fail fast. I think people are afraid of failure, so like if we had never tried that, we would have never known. Maybe it would have been the greatest thing since sliced bread, and it would have been great, but we would have been stuck doing this if we had never tried it.
Right.
So what's nice is you can put stuff out there, and if something doesn't work, you can actually pull back and learn pretty quickly, particularly in the digital space. TV advertising is a little harder, and billboards and radio and stuff like that, but with digital, it's really easy. So I guess that would be one. Again, I know it's not a specific example, I can't get into specifics, but that would just kind of be a general example. We've done tests like that.
That's the first, when you mentioned fail fast, that's the first I've heard of that concept.
Yeah.
Which I think is really important, because a lot of businesses nowadays, you have to be able to react quickly to, things that don't go how you anticipate.
Mm-hmm.
So that's interesting. I'll have to remember that, fail fast.
Yeah. Well, of course you don't want to fail.
Well, right.
But if you're going to be ready to,
sure.
Be able to move and be agile.
Yeah.
And actually it is and that's why the digital space is great, because you can fail faster.
Yeah.
Versus you put a new television campaign out there. You're talking months before, then you got to get all the information back. Then you got to analyze that data, which is a lot harder to analyze, and try and determine lift and all that. So that's why, like I said, and I stole that from Avinash Kaushik, who's an expert in digital analytics and web analytics.
Okay.
And that was his thing. It's like fail and fail fast.
Right.
Because then you can get right back in the game.
Yeah.
And you don't lose a lot of time and money by doing that. And you learn a lot.
You definitely learn, and it's good to have some flexibility to try new things.
Mm-hmm.
And you're not going to be 100% successful, but at least you can learn from it.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So they say numbers don't lie, but how do you handle situations where you are suspicious of the data?
I guess. So numbers can lie, I guess, technically. It's all in how you use them. There's lies, damn lies, and statistics.
There's another one that's it's called How to Lie with Statistics.
There's that book, I think.
Right.
I've actually never read it, actually. Right, now I'm getting sidetracked. So basically, how do you determine if something seems suspicious? How do you overcome? There really is no better way. For me, and it's just a personal thing. I very rarely trust numbers that are just given to me if they're just given to me. Like someone on the news, 17% of people say blah 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 or whatever. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, well, what's your data source? How did you do that? What was your sample size? For determining that. So yeah, that's how I go about doing it. If I'm suspicious of something, I'm going to dig in myself and get into it. And maybe that's, I don't know, maybe it seems, I don't know if it's egotistical or if it's something that I'm not trusting of other people. But again, if it's really too good to be true, chances are it is. And then a lot of times when you dig deeper into the information, you'll find that again, the numbers may not lie, but they can be twisted in such a way to paint a different picture. But when you actually get down into the nuts and bolts of it and the underlying data sources, you can actually look at it and be like, well, you actually can't look at it that way. It's because, it's the context of this, or like I was talking about earlier, there might be other influences of things. Mm-hmm. I know that there's, for an example, at one of the companies I work for, there was an analysis done by someone else that said, oh, this thing was a great success. And I looked at it and I said, it just something didn't seem right about it, because I had noticed some different things throughout the month that they were evaluating this program. And so when I dug into it, it was kind of another thing. It's like I realized, oh, you didn't factor the weather, and the fact that the weather this month was like 70 and sunny, and last year it was 40 and raining all month, or it wasn't that extreme, but they didn't factor that in. So they're saying, oh, business was fine as a result of this thing. Well, in reality, it was because it was 70 and sunny, and people were buying more, food and beverage as a result, and more people were, visiting and all that other stuff. So yeah, that's for me, it's just really, if you're suspicious about something and you have to make a decision with that information, be sure, take the time and dig into it.
Yeah, that's really important now too, especially with all of the, there's so much information coming at people, analysis paralysis, like you said, but even just general news, there's such an influx of information, people have a hard time sifting through what's real, what's not real, mm-hmm. and I guess numbers would, obviously play into that.
Yeah. So sometimes statistics get a bad rap because people are using them to manipulate them and paint the picture, and it's unfortunate.
What do you find most perplexing about customer behavior?
Everything. So part of my role is to actually, forecast and predict, when people are going to come and visit. And actually, that's just saying the word predict made me think it's kind of the new, I guess it is still emerging field of behavioral economics, which I'm really beginning to get fascinated by. I don't know a lot about, but I'm really fascinated by it. And there's actually a book out by Dan Ariely, I don't know how to pronounce his last name, but called Predictably Irrational. And that's kind of like who we are. We as humans, we think we're these complete rational beings, and we make the best decision every time as possible, when in reality we are predictable in being completely irrational. We will do things that just do not make sense, and we don't even notice it. We have all these cognitive biases, that again, that were kind of discovered through this field. And if you're interested in it, this field was kind of started by Daniel Kahneman and Amos Tversky back in like the 70s and 80s, and then Richard Thaler did a lot of great work as well in moving that forward. And actually, I think won a Nobel Prize for his work in behavioral economics. And but it's I don't know. There's just a lot of examples of things that we will do that just don't make sense. Like a good example is if you're imagine yourself sitting on the beach and you have a friend there.
That's easy to do.
Yeah, I know. And you have a friend there and say, hey, you know what? I'm gonna go grab us a beer. And I'm gonna, in one instance, and they did a study of this. In one instance, they say, I'm gonna go run over to that fancy hotel over there that we're right next to, and I'm gonna grab us a beer. And all they have is, whatever, to insert beer brand here. I don't want to get into all that stuff, but insert beer brand here. It's this nice cold bottle of beer. And it's like, well, how much will you pay for it if I go over there or whatever to this fancy hotel and get that bottle of beer? And they'll give you a price, say like, $8. Same situation, but they say, I'm gonna go run across the street to that kind of dive convenience store that's all broken down or whatever, I'm gonna get a cold beer from there, same brand, same size, same everything else. Like, how much money are you gonna? How much are you willing to pay for that? People will pay less because of that convenience store.
Right.
You know, it's the same exact beer. In economics, they call it utility. You're going to get the same utility out of that beer. It is going to quench your thirst on that beach on that day. But there's this perception that it's a different product because of where you purchase it from.
Okay.
So it's irrational behavior because, in theory, for that ice cold bottle of beer, same brand, same everything else on that same day and in that same condition, it shouldn't matter where it came from. It should be, I'm willing to pay $5 for that, or whatever that price is for someone.
Right.
But our mind says, oh, because of this fancy hotel or because of this rundown convenience store, we don't make the same decision twice.
Yeah.
When we should.
Yeah.
So it's subtle, but there are things like that are always there, and we have all these other biases, and But
There's so many times when I go into like a nicer, fancier place, and I just want to complain about the price, but I don't want to seem out of line in a nicer place.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No.
So,
and that's probably some part of you being like, this doesn't seem right, but I'm willing to do it.
right.
There's this ingrained thing that we as humans will
That's a good example.
do these things. Yeah. So.
All right. What is the most challenging aspect of maintaining brand awareness and loyalty?
I guess in today's day and age, it's because there is so much to drag everyone's attention away. Social media and just all the technology, smartphones, everything else. There's just so much going on in everybody's lives. And it's really, I guess it's been there for a while. It's just we have easier and quicker access to everything, and we're getting bombarded with information, branding information, and everything else. So to try and stay top of mind in that type of environment is challenging for anybody. So I kind of strained from the question. So
That's okay.
Is it how do you overcome that? Is that?
Or I guess the most challenging part about maintaining awareness or loyalty among customers in today's world.
Yeah. So I mean that's it. Just maintaining that awareness and all that noise. And as far as loyalty goes, not so much awareness, but when you start to get into loyalty, is what's funny is you think about a company like Biltmore, and then for me to go and to say we compete with Google and Amazon, it doesn't seem rational, like I was just talking about.
Yeah.
But in essence, almost every company we're competing with Google and Amazon and everything else, because what they're doing is, in terms of loyalty, they are establishing these standards of customer service that are so high, and that's debatable about however you feel about them or whatever. But when you think about Amazon, like one-click shopping, and they do all this association rule mining, like, oh, people who bought this, you're probably gonna like this. Just like, oh yeah, I do like that. Like, people have come to expect that, we are gonna know ahead of time all of your wishes and desires. And for us in Biltmore, and being a hospitality company, it's a challenge to, people really want us to know and understand them. However, getting to that point, to those levels, they expect like the service like that they get at Google and Amazon or whatever. But that's a pretty pricey prospect to get to that level of service. So we're not there yet. So the challenge is, well, how do you bridge that gap? How do you put measures in place that aren't going to cost millions and billions of dollars to set up? It's like, how can you kind of still mimic that level of customer service? What's great is we've been positioned in that way for many years. I mean, that is just kind of our hallmark is, customer service and hospitality. But when someone goes to our website and stuff like that, we're still working on how do we continue to improve that, because I even used to work with the web team, and it's good for what it is, but there's so much opportunity for us to anticipate our guest needs. And actually we do anticipate it, it's just we don't have the technology and infrastructure in place yet to provide that kind of customer service that they're getting used to.
Right.
So that's a big challenge, I think, for any company these days, unless you're Amazon or Google, because you're the ones driving it.
Yeah.
Apple, you know.
I think most companies are probably in, perpetual performance improvement mode.
Yeah.
You have to stay on top of it.
Yeah, and every company should be, regardless of your size. I mean, if you're not, in Lean Six Sigma, it's continuous improvement process in CIP. And yeah, I mean, you basically go through all the steps, you figure out, you make a plan, you put it into action, you measure it, and then you come back and you evaluate it and like, okay, what do we do now to improve it? Just continuous improvement. So I think that's important for any business, small or large.
I think something you said was really key, and that was understanding what the customers expect from you guys.
Yeah.
So a lot of people have these grand visions of a product or a service, and they want to roll it out without really doing much market research or understanding, whether or not people are willing to buy it or consume it. So that was a good point, I thought.
Yeah, that's a tough prospect, particularly when you're a smaller company and a startup. Market research is, even sometimes at our company, it's one of the first things to like get cut like from a product, because it's like, oh, it's expensive, and it's like, well, what if we don't learn anything from it? But it's worth it. So even if you do that research and you learn like, well, we shouldn't do this product, people are like, oh no, like, so now we've kind of spent all this money. And it's like, well, no, you didn't, because if you had produced it, gone to market, done all this stuff, you probably would have lost a lot more in the long run.
Exactly.
So it's worth it to do that investment in market research up front. I'm a big proponent, obviously.
Absolutely. So you touched on the increasing digital, how that's just proliferating everywhere. So what are your thoughts on the future of marketing and analytics in an increasingly digital world, and how well do you personally adapt to new innovations in technology?
Okay, two-part question.
Yeah.
So the first one, I mean, it's big data and all this stuff. I mean, staying on top of it is extremely tough, right? Was that the first part of the question? Was
what are your thoughts on the future?
On the future of, I mean, it's only going to get bigger and bigger.
Right.
I forget all the numbers. You start to get into like petabytes and zettabytes of data, which I can't even wrap my brain around. But from a data analytics standpoint, marketing analytics standpoint, it's what I mentioned earlier. Like, you can get into analysis paralysis and not even know where to start. So much information is coming in, and there is a need for data analysts to sort through all that information and analyze it. Some of the emergent in the future, I guess, where people are starting to move to is this idea of machine learning and artificial intelligence, which is great, to a point. Then at the end of the day, those technologies are still not to the point where they're gonna make decisions or anything. Not even artificial intelligence. They can on certain aspects, on certain things, but when it comes to the kind of knowledge of the business and understanding of what's needed to get done, the machine learning and artificial intelligence can kind of spit out these numbers and say, oh, we predict that this could happen, and then it really takes someone to understand like the real risks involved and some of the other things that may not get factored in. How's that going to be on employee morale, or how are the guests really going to react to that? And, so the future is kind of wide open. But I really see, there's going to be a need for more data analysts out there, because there's definitely a shortage right now. So that's as far as the future goes. It's only going to get bigger and bigger. And then as far as my ability personally to adapt to the changing, it's hard. Personally, I don't think adapting as quickly as I need to. Frankly, I wish I could answer that differently. But I'm learning stuff. But
I could probably agree with you there.
Yeah, it's hard. I'm learning. I'm in school like you, and so I'm learning stuff to try and just kind of stay up to speed with it. But what happens is, particularly when you get to be my age and you're in the middle of your career, you're learning all this stuff, but you still have to get your work done.
Right.
For today, they call it the tyranny of the day.
Yeah.
It's like, I still have to get done what I need to get done today. Well, I know how to do this old way using Excel or whatever. So I might just fall back and do that. So I'm not taking advantage of all these new technologies like R and Python whatever else, Hadoop, data systems or whatever. So I'm learning about those things, and I am using R a little bit in my work, but not as much as I would like. And so I guess maybe I'm just always tough on myself. I always want to be doing more than I'm probably capable of. But
I think the key now, because there's so much technology and so many different types of new technology that are out there that you could learn, that you have to really decide which ones are going to be applicable to your life and what you're doing.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to get consumed by, oh my gosh, I don't know this and I don't know that, and you have this fear of missing out, FOMO.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I've never heard the FOMO.
I know, but I know what you mean. So, last question.
Okay.
So you're also working on your graduate degree. Tell me about your program and how do you hope to utilize it in the future?
So the program that I'm in is through Penn State. It's an online program with Penn State, and it's a master's in data analytics, which essentially is mashing together applied statistics and like data mining and stuff like that, and analyzing data. I had started down the path of maybe getting my master's in applied statistics, and I did about half of that program, and I achieved what's called a graduate certification. And I decided, I was like, oh, do I really want to go on and get the full master's in applied statistics? And while I was kind of debating that in my head, because I figured I'd kind of learned everything I wanted to learn for my job, kind of being selfish. It's like it started to go into different paths where it's like I'm never probably gonna ever use that type of stuff or that level of statistics. And then they offered this program in a master's in data analytics, and basically all the classes I took for applied statistics directly related to this program. So I kind of shifted gears and went into that. And it was it's my wheelhouse is data analytics, of what I've been doing for 20 plus years now. So then, in terms of applying it to my job, it's had direct applications. As I mentioned before, that analysis a few years ago of analysis of covariance, and I've actually done other things with forecasting, using different forecasting techniques to try and predict visitation to Biltmore State, and has helped, and I've gotten better and better at that. And what's funny too is it's really great because I'm learning all these techniques. Some of them simple, like one of them is called the naive forecast model. The simplest model. It's like, well, what did we do either last month or last year, and just say that's what we're going to do again. It's almost like a baseline. And if you can't do better than that with all your fancy statistical models, then it's no point wasting all your time doing all that crazy math and everything. Just use your naive model. But that said, there's everything in between, all the way up to like artificial neural networks, which is kind of some of the stuff powering, a lot of that artificial intelligence and machine learning models. And so, you can try and pick and choose these different techniques and see what works, and for different applications. So it's kind of nice. You kind of have this market basket of info or techniques that you can try and pull from. So that's kind of how I'm using my degree currently, and trying to apply it. And again, ultimately, for me and for my role, it is how do you take data, analyze it for the purpose of making decisions and putting it into action, because otherwise it's useless. If you're not going to take that information and make a decision and take action with it, then why bother? So this is helpful in really teasing out better information for better decision making.
All right, very good. Well, I really appreciate your time today. Thank you for answering my questions and being willing to help me out on this.
Yeah.
And those of you in class, I hope you have learned something from our conversation today. I think Keith provided some really good information, and I think we can all learn a lot from what he has to say. And so with that, I appreciate your time, Keith.
Thanks, Christian.
All right.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
That's a wrap, folks.